Hi, welcome to the sixth and final episode of Ask the Experts that's put on by Issaquah Special Education PTSA. Our expert today is Dr. Alicia Jorgenson. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate the time that you've spent to make the video and then come back again and answer our questions. So I'm going to go ahead and yeah, thanks. I'm going to go ahead and get right into the questions. So the first question I have is, how do you advise someone who prefers to avoid difficult feelings that would cause anxiety to check in with themselves? They would much rather numb themselves by being distracted with social media, TV, or video games. So I think this is from in your video, you said, the first step is to check in with yourself to be able to, I guess, see that you need to do some self-care, but
yeah. No, I mean, I guess that my first thing that kind of comes to mind is thank you for acknowledging those feelings. I mean, I think that's really the first step along the process. I mean,
yeah, I got the feeling this was not for that person. It was for somebody in their family.
oh, well, it's always harder to change, somebody
Yeah.
else's self-care journey, because everyone's a
Yeah.
little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But I think so I'm going to try to speak then to whoever, maybe that's a pattern that somebody else, a family member, has noticed, but I'm going to try to speak directly though to that person, because I feel like every self-care journey is so individual and we can't walk for another person. Like as tempting sometimes as it is for parents to kind of try to step in and walk the walk, I don't think that that's ultimately going to be the right way. And so we kind of have to respect other people's autonomy too. So, I mean, so my advice, I guess, to this person that's maybe having some challenges with kind of facing emotions is, first step of acknowledging it. Hopefully they're there. And then just this idea that maybe self-care isn't all or nothing. Like it doesn't have to be like, I mean, that those difficult emotions can still exist and we could still focus on maybe some other things that would be a little bit easier to move forward with, like physical care or like moving your body or nutrition. Like I'm just thinking, gosh, there's a lot to unpack. And it sounds like that person's right now in a lot of pain right now. So my heart goes out to them in that sense. And I'm just thinking, if emotions are too painful to check in with, sometimes that means we look a little different direction and see if there's another way to approach self-care. And then, of course, like, when somebody's ready and wants to kind of approach that, maybe a self-care approach would be asking for help or asking for mental health professionals' help, or if I can't do it myself, maybe asking for that brave step of hopefully asking for help as well if they can't figure it out themselves too.
That's a good point. I mean, because like you said, I liked your categories of the mind, body, and soul. And like you can
Yeah.
strengthen those
Yeah.
other categories until,
Yeah.
to help buoy you up to reach out to maybe the more
Exactly.
difficult part.
Yeah,
So
and some
yeah, that's a
people's
good point.
strengths is not emotional processing. Some people's strengths are like, like let's focus on the nutrition and the moving your body, and I think kind of noticing that we all are a little bit different in kind of how we take care of ourselves. And some people are good emotional processors, and sometimes that's a little hard for some people too.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. So the next question I have is, my child can have really big emotions and reactions to negative events. How can I keep myself, so this is from a caregiver, from having similar big reactions to their reactions? I feel like I need to protect myself from their emotions so I don't engage in them too.
My gosh, no, I can totally relate having a toddler, but I think this
Oh,
exists at all moments in
yeah.
parenting. I think first I want to say, gosh, exactly right. I mean, I feel like that's the first step is kind of like, how do you stay calm yourself? We can't always control the environment, but we can
Mm-mm.
really try to control our response to the environment, and whether that's a screaming child or something else. I really like that idea of being able to stay calm and kind of weather the storm. This is kind of where I think maybe self-care can help kind of like almost build your emotional reserves. So like it's almost like maybe you have to invest in it maybe at different times, so that you can feel, that strong parental present to be able to kind of weather that difficult emotions and breathe through it yourself and stay curious and hopefully not judgmental towards yourself. But I'm almost wondering if that's like a an opportunity so that you could kind of cash in some of the piggy bank of self-care and
Yeah.
stay calm in those more difficult settings.
Yeah, that's a good idea of like, yeah, of again, using these other avenues and you have that reserve ready for you. Cause I feel like, I don't know, I feel like for me, like I'll have like moments of parental zen where it's just kind of, it happens like,
So
I feel
fleeting.
like lucky that it happens. And I never kind
Yeah.
of thought about it as, well, maybe it's because I had gone through a good process of self-care. So when it came up, when anything came up, I could like,
Sure.
oh, let's approach this calmly, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really think it's kind of a way for us to build up our reserves, almost like, to
Mhm.
fill up our cup so that we're able to be present in those more challenging moments of life, and hopefully be able to do what we know, is right. It's not easy.
No,
So
no.
definitely, be gentle and kind with yourself, and that, I
Yeah, and
think
that's
any
kind of
steps in
hard.
that
I mean,
direction.
I know
Yeah.
for me, being gentle and kind with myself is kind of a
Yeah.
hard thing sometimes because it's so easy to be overly critical, like, "Ah, why did you do that? Why did you react
Yes.
that way?"
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Yes.
So, um,
Yes, 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 and I think the flip side is if we wanna teach our kids this
yes,
behavior, we gotta model it ourselves, and yeah, so it's not
definitely.
easy, definitely. You,
Yeah.
you're totally right.
Um, so then the next question is, my daughter tends to beat herself up when her disability and executive functioning gets in the way of her success at school. I've heard her say, I'm such a failure, which I hate. I think she's amazing at all that she's been able to accomplish. How do I help her be kinder to herself?
No, right, so hard. I mean, I'm just thinking like my childhood self can definitely relate to some of these, like, kinda negative self-talk things. So I have lots of thoughts, as like in terms of like child psychiatry mode. Sometimes I try to put my hat on, but I'm trying to keep the hat of kind of the self-care mode and like what can
Mhm,
I do to help this parent, in the to kind of what's in their control. Like what are the things we can do to help them take care of themselves so that I think they can be present and validating when these challenging moments happen.
mhm.
I was thinking, you know, a lot of what we kind of hit on, but kind of the modeling of self-compassion, so it's kind of like if you expect
Yeah.
your kids to walk that walk, you have to walk that walk too.
Mhm,
So kind of, when you make mistakes or when you mess up, sometimes you kind of acknowledge it or you laugh at it or just I think that kind of gentler, kinder approach. Kids are often like looking at you in ways, sometimes that I realize that inopportune moments when my toddler repeats things I've said. So
yeah.
yeah, I think you're just a huge role model, and it goes back to kind of what's in your control. Like, I mean,
Mhm,
this girl's self-care journey, is going to be unique and different, and hopefully going to evolve with time, and hopefully there's going to be more kindness and compassion. But I think like, what can we do for this parent? I'm thinking kind of role modeling. I'm thinking I don't know if this would work, but you could say something like, "Hey, I don't like it when you're mean to yourself. I'm your mom. I'm going to stand up for any bullies that I see coming your way, even if
mhm.
that's you." So,
Yeah.
making it a little playful, but not just maybe calling it out. I don't know if that would work,
Mhm,
for this particular kid, but it's kind of like, "Hey, no meanness here. This is not
mhm.
a meanness area. We're not doing that. So,
Yeah.
is there another way? Can we think about this in another way? Kind of
Mhm.
hopefully tapping into more kind of growth mindset, curiosity, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like, because I have teenagers now, and it's like, and this will be different, like, kids versus teenagers,
Exactly.
and like
Yeah.
the navigation
Yes.
of teenagerness is something. It's yeah.
Yes.
It's
Yeah. Sometimes they can be a little more prickly. So I think it's always
yeah,
about not taking things personally as a parent. Is you
yeah.
put on your armor sometimes, and you kind of let things roll off you,
Mhm.
and I think but I don't think it's wrong to say, hey, that hurt my feelings, or I don't, I think
Yeah.
things can be true. You can still have boundaries and awareness that teenagers, yes, are a little feisty sometimes.
Yes.
Yes, so good luck. I'm guessing you're in the thick of it right now too.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I think my approach has been like, and this is my home too, and I should feel comfortable in my home. And so this is like to help me set boundaries of like, I
Exactly.
shouldn't feel, I should feel loved and safe in my home. And so, I totally understand frustration, but I mean, and really I think of it, it really kind of helps me to like not just ignore it because, oh, that's a teenager, but to like call them out on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because like,
Hey,
is this how I want to live?
right. And I think it kind of always goes back to kind of the child, at least this is my child psychiatry take on it, is more,
Yeah.
all emotions are valid and we can call them
Yeah.
out. It's just kind of the behaviors that are associated with emotions that sometimes where we get into trouble. So yeah, hey, you're angry. Hey, go take a break in your room. I don't want to be hurt. I'm not
Yeah.
sure how that helps you to hurt me, but like
Yeah.
it's almost like, gosh, yeah, let's try to figure this out a different way.
Yeah. All right. The next question is, how can I tell if my self-care is really self-indulgence or vice versa? I feel like I err on the side of thinking my self-care is self-indulgence. And I guess maybe then they would negate it and not do it. But how can I really know?
Yeah, I mean, that's a wonderful question. One that I grappled with initially too is that I thought self-care was all self-indulgence, which I've really come to terms that that's not the case. I mean, the two terms are definitely not mutually exclusive. I mean, like
Mhm.
self-indulgence is probably an important part of everyone's self-care routine, but I think it just doesn't have to be all of it.
Mhm.
So I think it's a little bit about kind of checking in with yourself about kind of, is that balance right? I mean, am I working too hard, or do I need a little bit more of a break, or am I taking too many breaks and maybe I need to work a little harder and then the breaks will feel more meaningful?
Yeah.
um yeah, that's kind of what comes up for me. And I think well, my other thought was, as I took a few notes, I was thinking, um think about what happens, I guess, after you do whatever self-care. And I mean, if it makes you happier, or feel better, I mean, to me, that's a little bit of a win. Like, think about
Mhm.
how your actions are having these trickle down effects. If you feel horrible and guilty afterwards, okay, maybe that's a sign that maybe what you need is to approach or to avoid avoiding or to do something else.
Mm.
But if it helps fill your cup up, I think, yeah, then we're definitely in the category of self-care. So
Well, I notice, and again, I notice in myself that I can have a hard time because like I'll have like a to-do list to get done. And then, and then,
yeah,
and then it's like, okay, well, I had to go take a nap, because I was exhausted. And then I'm mad, but then I mean, I've been trying to like, okay, obviously, Meg, you needed the nap because you wouldn't have taken it if you didn't need it. But I'll like, and so like at that point, I guess, I'm like, well, was that self-care or self-indulgence? Because, then I guess the other thing too is like, well, maybe my focus on getting this to-do list done today is not what the goal is. I mean, because I
no,
guess
and
that's what comes up
it's
in my mind about this.
complicated, and I feel like it's almost kind of like your own inner, soul person can answer some of these questions for sure. But I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like you kind of had to take a break, and that's okay. I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
like kind of not beating yourself up for taking a break. It's more just
Yeah.
like, hey, my body needed a break. How interesting. I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Oh,
be
yeah.
back. And then
Finding
I'm gonna go back
curious.
to doing whatever I need to do. And
Mm-hmm.
just permission to know that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you don't always have to be in this checklist mode, I guess, all the time. I mean,
Well, I mean, it's something I've noticed in my kids too. Like, you have all these assignments to do and you have this deadline and it's like, well, if I don't make progress in this assignment, then I'm having a bad day. And it's like,
right,
well, could you be I mean, I guess, and to me, I'm like, oh no, I'm modeling this, got to get these things done to have a good day. And like, can you have a good day without getting,
right,
you know,
right.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
how do you take away almost the checklist or the achievement? It's almost like, can we be in a good mood, whatever day of the week it is, like,
Regardless of your productivity.
yeah, exactly. That, I mean, productivity is nice, and hey, I like it when it happens, but I think there's also some messaging around, you know, sometimes that's not, what's in the books for the day, so, and
Yeah.
allowing that to happen. I think everyone kind of has to fight that balance of like,
Yeah.
productivity and breaks, and it's tricky, definitely.
Mhm.
But I think it sounds like you're very productive.
Well, or yeah, I don't know.
Very,
I
yeah,
I like to be, but
yeah.
but again, I'm like, is this healthy? Is this a healthy thing that I should be
Uh,
focused on? You know?
well, and I think
That's-
I think it's kind of also goes back to kind of that almost meta thinking about it, is like, gosh, like I'm just gonna kind of take a bigger overview of like, are my actions, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And and sometimes it's like a gray area and we don't know, but I
Yeah,
think just tap into hopefully what your true self says, and kind of think
yeah,
about things, and
yeah.
yeah, finding
Yeah, and
that balance.
it's tricky. I mean, because it's like, okay, what would make me have a good day is like hanging, getting to play with my kids as opposed to, getting the closet cleaned out, kind of thing. And it's like where, you know, I don't even know what to say. I was like, you know, but for some reason, like the getting to play with my kids gets kind of pushed aside because like, oh, this is a practical thing to get done. So,
Yeah,
but
no,
yeah,
and I think life is all about navigating, you're right, that balance of
yeah,
pleasure and reward, and and doing what the difficult work, and yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah.
the chores.
I know the chores
I
and the
wish
chores,
I
and
I
then
wish I
are
could
they important?
magic those away. Yeah,
I
yeah,
know, I know.
yeah,
Bewitched was, it's my,
yeah,
I don't know if you remember
exactly. Just
that
yeah. No, no, no.
movie,
Oh yeah,
TV
definitely.
show.
That was a fave.
Like,
Yeah, no,
all
yeah.
right, here's our last question. My son does not seem to respect himself or his abilities. I think because of his ambivalence about his diagnosis. He does not respect himself by doing incomplete work in topics he is not interested in, and yet when he gets bad grades, he will say it's because he's an idiot. I hate how he will talk to himself when he's upset. How can I help him? So this is another caregiver
Yeah, I know.
wanting to
I
try
think
to help.
yeah, I think I'm definitely hearing a theme of like a lot of parents out there wishing their kids would be nicer to themselves, and maybe practice self-care. It's a tough thing to impose on anyone. So I think what we have to do is kind of check in with ourselves, and see about the things that we can kind of modify, what's kind of in our power and our control. And so I go back to, kind of modeling self-compassion, and it might be like a hard look at yourself. I mean, do you ever criticize yourself when you mess up? And I mean,
Mhm.
is your kid noticing any of that? And so I think it is hard to change these patterns that sometimes are so ingrained in us. So I think taking a lot of care to notice what happens when you do make a mistake,
Mhm.
and hopefully take that kinder, gentler approach, and
Yeah.
maybe even say it out loud. And that might sound silly, so that your son can hear it too. But
Mhm.
is this hopefully acceptance that mistakes happen, and and you can have disappointment, and you can validate the disappointment, but again, I think it's also making sure your reserves are up so that you can be
Yeah.
present in
I
those
think
harder times too. I mean, part of me has
that's
like lots of
key.
thoughts about how to problem solve, like how do we change things so that your kid is nicer to themselves, and
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a separate talk. But I guess so another thing in your power is kind of hopefully getting them mental health treatment if that's what
Mhm.
they need. And so
Yeah.
just thinking about kind of the things in your control, because your kid is an individual and is
Yeah.
walking their own self-care journey, and they may not they're probably not going to listen to my talk or do the
Or their parents.
yeah,
They're
exactly.
teenagers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so I want to, acknowledge it's probably going to take time for them to figure out some of this
Yeah.
stuff. So I think about kind of what's in your control, and your control as a parent is kind of how you respond to emotions and disappointment, and
Mhm.
modeling that, and being
Yeah, when my kids were little, and we did this until they're like, "Mom, this is stupid. We're not doing this anymore." But we used to do a good, bad, and funny, which
oh, I love
was,
it.
the interesting thing was like the bad and the funny kind of ended up being the same thing. So like in the
That's
moment,
sweet.
it's bad, but like when you were able to talk about it and process it, you're like, actually, that's kind of funny that happened like
I
that.
love that.
Yeah. So
That's a lovely way of processing difficult. I know
yeah,
we do a high-low buffalo, so I think that's probably the
nice.
same line of thinking. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Love just this idea of kind of hopefully having some time during the day as a family to, check in about what's going well and what's not, and
Mhm.
what's just funny. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Did you have any other words of wisdom, pearls of wisdom to give to give our community before I let you go?
I mean, just these questions, of course, for me, kind of made me start thinking, gosh, how do we make kind of this kindness and self-compassion? How do we make this cooler and trendier so that like our
Oh,
teenagers want to do this, and
yeah,
our younger kids want to do this too, that like how do we get that movement going? Because I want to sign up for that.
me too.
So anyway,
Yeah.
that's just mainly what I was thinking based on everyone's questions. I'm like, yeah, there's still a lot of work to do on this. And, we can start with parents, hopefully, and working on their self-compassion. But yeah, let's see if we
And they're
can,
modeling. And I
and
love,
they're modeling. And
and
then,
parent modeling.
I'm just thinking that parents aren't always the coolest role models. So,
Nope.
if we can get this ball rolling with everyone, like we can make
Yeah.
big change, I think.
Yeah. I think there's more talk about it than growing up,
Oh, I think,
now. So, I mean, I love it. I love it.
yes, we got to walk the walk now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and efforts for doing this for us in our community, and we really appreciate
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
all your advice.
Yes, yes, yes. And, I guess if anyone needs any more services or help, I mean, I'm at Swedish. I work in the primary care setting, and, you can access lots of our services. We have behavioral health providers and psychiatrists. So hopefully we'll just be able to help everyone on their self-care journey. So,
Great. Thank you so much.
okay, bye.
Bye.